I want to give a super shout out to Kazuki Yao. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Who was the voice actor for Frankie, Betham, and Mon Blutan, better known as the fake Sogi King. He started his career in 2001, so he's been with the series for over 20 years at this point. What is so interesting about this is that we don't know, with him stepping down as the voice of Frankie, who's going to replace him. But another interesting aspect of this is that he also voiced Mr. 2. And I think this is a very interesting opportunity for Mr. 2 to possibly change completely. Because in chapter 666 in the cover story from the Decks of the World, we find that Mr. 2 did indeed survive his confrontation with Magellan and is now the replacement for Emporio Evenkov inside of level 5.5 of Impel Down as the new queen of New Kama Land. With that being said, we do see him. He does have hairy legs and he does wear the outfit that he fought Sanji in way back in Alabasta. But with that being said, I think from just seeing the back of him and leaving his face ambiguous does lead me to think that more could be done with him in the future. What I mean by that is there's a very interesting DLC costume that appears in a video game known as One Piece Burning Blood. And the reason why I'm bringing up video games at all is because the crossover from manga to video game seems to be happening more and more, as many an animal that appears in One Piece Odyssey was concept art or just straight up appears in One Piece Strong World. So I say that to say, always look at everything as anything can become canon at any time. So with this DLC costume from Mr. 2, the reason why I'm so fixated on it, and I've talked about it in my Dice Fruit Clone Fruit video in which those two fruits were revealed, and I've also talked about it in my first year anniversary video, I think that this DLC costume is going to possibly be what Mr. 2 looks like in the future, possibly. Because the reason why this is so unique is that he becomes a 7'10" version of a time skip Nami. This is unprecedented, and this would also be an interesting evolution of the clone fruit to show that he has become more adept at using his abilities, because he does indeed do something similar to this during his fight with Sanji, as he is able to mix and match characteristics of himself with other people. But during the fight, he could only do it on a very small scale, as he could only grow Usopp's nose on top of his own face. So, if he is to get stronger in the Devil Fruit department, I could see this as a natural path for him to get stronger with. An ability to just become whatever he wants in a way. Because another obvious weakness that was presented in his fight with Sanji was that he could only use Okama Kenpo while using his own body, because his body is specifically tailored towards the use of Okama Kenpo. Therefore, any change in his proportions severely dampen his fighting style. But if this DLC costume is the actual path that Mr. 2 is going to go on in the future, it will be a very obvious character or power boost for him, because now his proportions can be retained in another state, or perhaps any state that he chooses to take. With that being said, this would also be a very interesting parallel to Sanji again, because much like Mr. 2, Sanji has also been Nami thanks to the powers of law, and he had to perform some things in Nami's body that Nami doesn't usually do. which I mean Blue Walk, in which he performs a underwater moonwalk in order to save a piece of Kinemon. So with that being said, I could see this then doubling back into Mr. 2, in which he now has his own variation of Nami that he transforms into that can use Okama Kenpo. With that being said, additionally, this would be a very interesting parallel to Emporio Ivankov, because if I'm not mistaken, Emporio Ivankov, both in his male and female forms, have the same height, just different proportions. So this would be a play off of that. He can turn into a woman, meaning Bon Clay can turn into a woman, but then he can turn into a woman with the same body proportions as his male state. But with that being said, we'll see what happens in the future, and give me your thoughts and tell your friends about Polypede Works It.